Good morning, folks. Appreciate everybody being with us today. Couple of people, not that many actually, have asked how I'm feeling.
You got a haircut.
I got a haircut. I'm feeling better every day, and it's good to see folks be able to say hello and feel like I'm not about to give you, a disease or something.
I'm sitting next to you.
I'm seeing them better. It's like the odds are really low now. I'm giving you something. Good. Our first item today that we want to talk about is the possibility of improvements that would be made to the Fairfield County Airport, and then perhaps some of the mechanisms or means that could be employed to facilitate those improvements. We've been discussing these for, I don't know, it seems like maybe a couple of years now, or at least over the course of a couple of years, 2022 and now 2023. So, John, I'm guessing what we'll have here is kind of a recommendation from your vantage point, and perhaps others that you're consulting with on this recommendation, and then maybe a potentially granular discussion on funding options to proceed if the recommendation were to be looked favorably on. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah. Quick overview is at your pace, and then questions. We anticipate you'd have several, so we want to have an address those.
Well, I have a question.
Go for it.
I see A and B, but I don't see C.
Yeah, so that is one of the biggest. We talked about this at the last time that we kind of overviewed the plan. The C option, which is the largest we call corporate hangar, has that ability to act as a community-based hangar until a corporate flyer is identified.
Right.
That would have that management structure piece, and it really just seemed like at this point in time, it would be a lot to manage. There would be some insurance costs, but it is something that we still feel like could be on the horizon, but at the cost of almost $5 million in the present fiscal environment, it might not be the lead option just on its repayment and some of the things that we looked at. I can say that any jet that were to fly into Fairfield County, our current runway, could be housed in a 60 by 60 hangar. So if ABC Corporation wanted to come here today and move forward with the 4 60 by 60 hangars, we could house them until we could build what they want, or until they could build what they want with our lease. So we have a plan still to accommodate any company that would want to base in Fairfield County by using these just a smaller hangar until they can build what they want. So with that, we obviously have narrowed that focus down to the A and B option. Again, this is a master planning process that, as you mentioned, is almost 2 years in now. And the FAA is on our final legs of approving our master plan, which is this and many other projects that operate and improve the airport. So again, the rendering's a little off here. It takes a lot to do a 3D rendering, but these the hangars that you see here would be oriented north-south, so they'd be turned, and that 100 by 100 would be a limit. So they would be there. Those 4 would be there.
Show me could you go back?
Yeah.
I want to make sure I understand.
So
Those 4 buildings that look like 2?
they are 2 buildings that look like 4 hangars. Yeah, they would be built in. This is one building. This is one building. There are 2 hangars.
In each building.
Yeah.
Those are the 60 by
60 by 60.
On this 3D diagram, or whatever you call it, rendering, is the T10 hangar, or whatever you're calling that.
They're just out of sight. They would go right here, right on that grass space. We think they would look just like this.
Okay.
We just, anticipated that we all understood a 3D, but the overhead will give you an idea when they sit.
The 100 by 100 is the C option that's not in the current.
That's correct. That's what it looks like But again, the first rendering, we would have actually located it closer to the terminal,
Okay.
as its potential location, but we still retain the option to put it on this end of the airport.
I just want to make sure I understood what I was looking at.
Yeah.
Please proceed.
Yeah, sorry, and we'll have a rendering soon. I guess it does take some time to create these. And that 100 by 100 actually has 3 different locations it could be on the airport, depending on a potential client who would want that.
So you're saying you could build 3 of them?
Or we could build many more. You own so much property to the north to be developed. We could develop. There's one that anticipates a growth pattern in our master plan. This is, the potential growth of having 100 hangars over there. You own so much property on the north side of the runway that could be developed that already has utilities and access.
I understand.
Sky's the limit.
I'm going to quibble a little bit with the people.
The people, sorry, you're correct. Fairfield County. So quick overview, 10 unit T hangars. These are our traditional general aviation hangars. We have, as of last meeting, 20 applications with deposits for new hangars. So our waiting list is currently at 20 for this type of hangar. So we are already exceeding that need. And building 10 would still keep us at a waiting list.
Jeff and Dave, if I could just alert you to what you're already probably getting a sense of. I think this conversation needs to get granular. And so if people would allow some patience, because this is how we do county business, and this is a big doggone deal, so we're not going to get a little granular on that. Back up. Give me a sense of what would have been the most recent communication with the people on the wait list. There was a bigger number at one point than 20 that we were kind of alerted to, and for some reason 38's coming to mind, but that might not have been the right.
What was our peak? I think the peak, well, and there was a number in the 30s, and then we instituted a deposit type list.
Okay.
There was a little bit of, I'm not ready today. So the airport authority made the decision to ask for a deposit and hold your place in line.
Okay, so then I want to talk about these 20 that have apparently made a deposit. They're in line.
Yes.
And what would have been the format mechanism of the most recent communication between the airport and the people on that list?
As they talked to the FBO, the management team, to put their deposit in, they were told what number and place they were in line.
When did the deposit policy, when was it initiated?
January of 21, I believe, was our board meeting in January 21 when we made that change.
I guess what I'm getting to inartfully is, could people on that waiting list of 20 be stale? Was the deposit non-refundable or was it refundable?
It is refundable.
And I have refunded 1 or 2
One or two who
that
have
have
left
moved
to
elsewhere,
Circle
or
Hill.
they've sold an aircraft.
And we've placed 3, I believe, in the past year in hangars. One was a hangar that we had a lawnmower in that we were able to build a place for that lawnmower. So we were able to use that hangar back into production.
Are those 20 prioritized from like a first come, first served basis?
Timestamp, first deposit, first.
And so then if this were to come to fruition, be built, you've got 10 units, you got 20 people who want them, you would just start down the list and say, you ready? You ready?
That's correct.
So you got the 10.
Yep. And the fact that these are a bit of a premium, some of those people may pass. So we anticipate that these hangars, being the closest to the terminal, closest to the restrooms, closest to the facilities, are a little bit of a premium. So some people may say, I don't want that hangar, but we anticipate if we go through that list, others in the community now that are already on the airport will want to move up.
So it'll be kind of a caste system.
There'll be a little bit of shuffling. And in addition to these 10, we anticipate at least 1 or potentially 2 from our R row, which is a current box hangar at the end of the airport. They would want to move up to these premium commercial hangars, thus freeing up space in that back. There'll be a massive reshuffling, I believe, in people who prioritize different things on the air.
You just used the word again. I want to make sure that
Sorry.
no language. You said that they would want to move up to these premium commercial hangars.
Mhm.
Is that the same thing as the unit T10 hangar?
No, that's the 4-box hangars, what we call commercial hangars.
All right.
So what, when all the shuffling is done, in your estimation, how many people will remain on the waiting list after those 10 spots are filled? 7?
Potentially. It just depends on, yeah, it's anywhere from 10, obviously, to we could probably, with people going in different locations, a couple more planes may fit in an R hangar. So sometimes people will share one large hangar and put 3 airplanes in it. So that eliminates the need for 3 T hangars because those smaller planes can fit 3 to a big hangar. And we only have 1 row of those big hangars currently. And they've been long-term occupants.
I guess just at a foundational level, fastest. And I'm gonna let you get through your presentation.
No.
But we're gonna get down into it.
Yeah.
right? Because that's what we gotta do. You're making this recommendation, right?
The airport authority,
Who's that?
myself and 6 others. So Michael Caper is with us today. I've invited others to join online. I didn't check to see who's there, but you've appointed a total of 7 of us to the airport authority over the years. And this with our engineering consultant CMT and the FAA plan that ultimately is the behind the scenes of all this.
Airport, what you're calling the airport authority, is that what we normally call the airport authority?
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I just assumed it didn't, you know, their new body that I didn't know. Airport authority.
Yes.
All right. It was unanimous.
Yes, has been unanimous. Our work group sessions actually built this master plan. So, and that's input from us, from the people who are already renters on the airfield, people who are potential clients that would like to, fly into the airport that are temporary in need right now. So they just park out on the pavement. And I think we had over 300 responses from the community.
The exclusion of C from this recommendation that you're making, was that also unanimous, or was there somebody within the airport board who was like, well, I don't really agree with taking C off, but I guess if that's all we can get, or tell me about it.
I think it's probably more of a I'll take the ownership. That is probably the one thing where, and I think Rick helps there as he exited to, it's a risk. And I don't know that I can be risky with those funds. It's not a risk that you're going to lose money. It's a risk that we're not going to identify that corporation that wants to be here in a year. It could take 10. It's a spec building, essentially. And it's just a point where, it's a massive undertaking, and I don't really want to have a point where in 10 years this thing's empty.
So let's talk about that for a second. Michael, you have a comment?
On behalf of the airport board also.
You already have questions here.
Yeah, I think the board is pretty much under the understanding and the belief that, it's not that we don't want a large 100 by 100, and we don't see a need for it at some point. As we look at, we're a little leery about building a spec building that size, that cost, without having anybody lined up right now. And the plan moving forward, if we did have anybody in that building, the management plan that was suggested by our engineering team, it's not really something we're prepared to do at this point. So in order to fill that type of building, size of a building, with just inhabitants or just people who rent and help pay for the cost, at this point, we don't think our current management plan really is set up to handle that type of situation. And we don't want to run the risk of saying it's $10 million or nothing. We're comfortable with saying we have this need for these T hangars. We know we have a potential need coming up for these commercial type hangars, the 4, that could fill exactly what we need now and in the near future, knowing that farther out in the future, we may have a need for the 100 by 100. But it's not that the board doesn't want it. It's that, we're just kind of looking at our best option.
Let me ask this question with Rick and y'all, buddy. If NewCo were to announce a new plan, let's just say, or whatever, it's going to take them years, right? From announcement to operational, right? So I'm guessing that one of the thoughts that you're kicking around is, look, we can have this kind of laid out, the location, the design, the utility problems, the complications. We can kind of have our arms around that. So if NewCo says go, that could be, probably arranged within the same or similar time frame to what NewCo would need anyway.
Probably less. And we have that additional opportunity to say, while you're building your plan, you can still fly in, use this smaller hangar while you build your larger hangar. We could probably turn around in less than a year. Because everything is ready, the ground is ready, the utility trigger, like you said. So it's really just identifying the bidding process and actually giving them an opportunity to put input on how they want that to be built.
Anybody who's gonna invest that type of money in that big of a building probably is gonna wanna tell us where it's gonna be. And if we give them options as opposed to us build the buildings, and then they come in, they use it, and then they say, well, we'll build across the airstrip, and then it's empty again, something like that. I mean, it just makes a little more sense. We think our end for a building that size, bringing that kind of a business that'll use that building and an airplane of that type, they'll probably want a little more choice and where they put it on the airport.
So we are going to plan to do a build to suit. So availability, land available at Fairfield County Airport or a build to suit for corporate hangar if required.
So when you're in discussions, which I understand the privacy of some of the discussions and so forth, but when you're in those discussions, you think this is in your toolkit, so to speak,
That would not necessarily have to be
even if it's not already built.
If we're doing land lease or ultimately it came down to a really big company coming here and we need to build this hangar. Commissioners and ask could we.
And I'm going to allow you to continue your presentation in just a moment, but I want to make sure if Commissioners Levacy or Fix have questions or comments at this juncture of the presentation, that you have an opportunity to ask those questions. I'm good. You want to say something smart?
I'll try to find a way to get a word in edgewise, set something. You keep going, we're doing good.
Proceed.
Just an overhead here of the T hangar, just so you know its physical location for a marker. That's our terminal area right here. That's our fuel pump. So you can see why there's an advantage to being in this block of T's. And we actually are building it in that location for a specific reason. So it is the premium. Build that first. It has the ability to expand to the south quickly and expandable as these buildings are. So if we find that T is the 10 is good and 20 or 10 more would be better, in 10 years we could easily turn that around. There's no limitation of the ground. That's really going to be the thing. That kind of benchmarks our T hangar section of the airport. We still have room to grow, but it really just sets it up in what I like to call a perfect grid. Work well. So this is just that breakdown on the ROI, no financing included on the T hangars. We're estimating that 1.7 million cost to build 10 hangars. It pays itself off in about 22 years without figuring the financing aspect in there.
Let's stay on that page for a minute.
And that's a 90% occupancy.
54,000 annual lease revenue is 90% of the actual number.
Yes. Yeah, because if it was 450, yeah, that was at 90%. So I think it was 57,000 or 58,000 was the ORI. I'd have to go back to the spreadsheets. Control 60. Thank you. So we built in that occupancy, which we have not been at less than 100% occupancy since 2019.
That's 500 a month.
Yeah. $450 a month per hangar. And yeah, that's right. $450 a month.
It's 500. Then you used a 90% factor, which got you to 450. If the math on this page is correct, that's the math.
I might have put the chart at 100%. That might be the 100% chart. I need my laptop to look and make sure.
So
I beg for forgiveness on that chart.
no, it's fine. But when you getting into kind of an ROI type analysis, right? 10 points here, 10 points there, right? That kind of matters. What I'm asking, I guess, is the 5,400 is $450 per month per hangar
For 10 at 100% occupancy.
at 100% occupancy.
I put in the wrong chart.
That's all right. Just want to make sure I understand what we're looking at.
And what I have in that other chart in the expanded PowerPoint deck is at 90%, it only adds like 3 years of total ROI to the total project. If you take 10% off, it's not adding a large time frame to pay off
And
the apples to apples.
everybody's welcome to their
I build
point of view
stuff.
in terms of doing an ROI type analysis. I just want to tell you how I come at that, because it's not based on how many years is it going to take to recover the initial investment, right? And I understand that's a question that people ask and people answer, and I get it. I look at it more from the standpoint of the 1694, which I want to dig into that a little bit too. But the cost of construction,
Mhm.
right? And then the anticipated revenue, right? And just doing the math in my head, you're slightly north of 3 points, right? Because 1.6 and 1.6 and 1.6 is just 4.8, and you're at 54,000. So you're just north of 3% on the ROI is what it looks like to me.
Oh, in a year. Okay. I'm treading water. I build things and manage tornadoes. Come on.
So the monthly lease rate, is that based on what?
So yeah, we took a poll of Central Ohio and this type of feeder airport and these type of T hangars, and then we even compared that against other major metros and a growth pattern similar to ours. And CMT helped us break down that analysis. 450 was kind of that middle of the road mark for what you would see in Central Ohio in a feeder airport, Newark, Delaware, and that is in the premium level of the T hangar, meaning its location to services.
It's a higher rent than the current rent on the T.
Yeah. But even if you go back, this block is a little more than this block. I mean, they're built into their amenities and their closeness to access to the airport and parking and restrooms and things like that. Sorry, I feel bad not being able to answer those finance questions, but
We're gonna, fine, we have people here
yeah,
who,
that's this whole section.
and we're gonna get to the funding issues, and so, you're doing fine. This is, spoiler alert, I want to end the discussion today. Right?
Yeah.
And I don't think it's fair for the commissioners to end that discussion without getting deep in the weeds.
Sure, absolutely.
Proceed.
So we're as we go kind of out of that T hangar discussion into the commercial box hangars, 60 by 60, these 3,600 square foot. That's kind of an industry standard based on the aircraft that would land at our airport and their wingspan and their height. So what the FAA identifies as critical aircraft for our airport, mid-sized business jets. We could have a larger jet, but we'd have to make adjustments to the runway and infrastructure, which would really cost a considerable amount. It can be done, and it is in our long-term plan. The number one thing is a concrete runway. A concrete runway supports the weight of a larger aircraft. So we're building this for now, but with a little bit of a for the future, because we do feel like that runway can support a larger aircraft.
I want to make sure is first slide, the T10,
Mm-hmm.
that was the 60 by 60 or the 100?
No, those are the smaller T hangars.
Okay.
Those are general aviation hangars. They're about the size of this room. They're very compact. They're meant for
No,
one.
but the buildings.
The
side-
buildings themselves are quite large. Yeah, that building is this square or this rectangle. I'm sorry. This rectangle is one building that holds 10 different hangars
Okay.
in a T-shaped configuration. Like that's what the actual hangar looks like, and they fit together like Tetris.
Okay.
So we're giving a small opportunity to not build the suit, but give a little bit of buy-in on as far as how the hangars themselves would be designed if we go forward. They would have the ability to, what we've asked for is instead of having a waiting list, first come, first serve, that the prospective tenants of these hangars would produce almost like an application. And we would scale those and rate those in a way to be determined on how it best serves the airport and its commercial success. So it wouldn't just be a big hangar to store things in, because
And the number of tenants is
it would just be 4, 1 per the 60 by 60. An operation could hold multiple aircraft in it. So like a training operation, they could hold 6 or so airplanes in that hangar and use that as their training for aircraft flying training. We have one prospective tenant, without spilling the beans too much, who has an interest in opening a helicopter dealership, sell helicopters. That has to be separate than the current service helicopter that is existing on the airport. That's an FAA rule. So this would be basically a place that people could buy helicopters, which is unique to the Midwest.
so how many tenants are we talking about?
In the 4 hangars, be 4 different tenants.
All right, go ahead.
We have those existing potential leases now on the airfield. This would also have more applicants than we currently would have space for.
How many applicants do you have?
We have 4 on the airport right now that would be interested in leasing these. Do they all make sense for propelling the airport, into a more commercial and more? Maybe not. Maybe some would just be storage. We could easily fill it with someone's large aircraft. There are those tenants right now that are finding a place for their large aircraft. And it makes sense for them because it's not a huge cost compared to what it takes to operate a plane.
Go ahead.
So this would be the configuration. What you see in gray is pavement. Pavement on this side. This would be probably gravel, compact gravel. That's the land side or your public access. So that would be another unique feature. It would be the other place that a public entity could drive up and park here at the hangar door so that that person can operate the storefront side of their business.
Can I ask a question on those?
Sure.
Are those 2 ways in and 2 ways out? In other words, can you drive through, could you pull completely through them? Or do you have to go in and back out, so to speak?
Oh, no. Yeah. The hangar door is only on the air side. So the airplane's all back in. That's just industry standard.
Okay.
There'd be a man door or something like that on this side, on this type of door. Restroom facilities, thanks to Tony's utilities project and the ARP funding that was available, we're upgrading the utilities on the airport anyway, and this was an opportunity to build that cost in a little bit and really helps the project immensely with that ARP. Was going to be needed anyway with the ARP project, but the timing works out just wonderful. As you can see, we still anticipate that future 100 by 100 and even another 60 by 60 that could be scaled up in this same area, kind of locking in this, what we call commercial section here. That's the museum, B, and A is our current helicopter operation that's operating at the airport. It's one of the largest repair and training facilities for helicopters in Ohio, potentially even beyond. This, I did not change the percentage of occupancy. We anticipate they'll be full, and we anticipate longer lease periods for the tenants that are there, just due to help them with their financing of their specific projects. So what we know to be a very low lease rate of $1,000. So it's still in the point where this is the lowest I think it could be. I think what we may see is that that does need to go up. We would anticipate that the simple ROI on this would be about the 30-year mark, just short of 30-year.
So what could we lease those for?
In Central Ohio, Newark is building this hangar right now. They won't share with us what they're going to lease it for yet, but we'll soon know. Akron Canton leases these for about $2,000. A little bit bigger of an airport, obviously. No one else has this size. So besides the one being built at Newark, we'll be the only other Central Ohio airport with these
So
available.
1,500 wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility.
I don't believe so.
So the
When you're-
1,000 is conservative.
Very conservative.
Well, 1,500 would change your numbers pretty considerably.
It would, I mean, but even at that, I mean, the math is slightly better on A than it is on B.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just quantity, I think, is what helps us there. Obviously, we only have 4 to lease for almost the same size building. But I think our row rents right now for about $595. So it's the same, it's a little bit smaller, 50 by 50, and it's in the very back of the airport and inconvenient for business. And that's still at $500, almost $600.
So let's jump up to the construction costs
Sure.
and basically same questions for both what I'm just gonna call A and B for simplicity. You know, if we go back over the last 13 years, we had an on-time and under budget record that was just stellar, right? And then the last couple years, on time and under budget hasn't been the way things have gone.
When John Coaches came on board.
Right, right. I mean, it's just, coincidental, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure.
No, but I mean, the supply chain, the inflation, there's been a lot of crap.
Yeah.
Availability of labor, I mean, everything that could go wrong from a construction planning perspective the last couple of years seems to have gone wrong. So I want to kind of understand what went into cost estimates. Is there a 10%, leeway for extras? I mean,
Sure.
what's in the math here?
So I think we're definitely more confident on the construction of the 60 by 60 hangars. This is the hangar in a simpler form being built at Newark, and our engineer, we share an engineer. So they are the same engineer that's happening there. They are the construction admin for this project that is almost at completion now. So other than the fact that if you started today, we'd be 12 months behind. These are the costs that are tracking in Central Ohio for a mirrored type of hangar. So we're pretty confident on 60 by 60. On the T hangars, the 10-unit T hangars, there actually could be a potential savings if we went into the wood frame, but people are a little leery about wood frame in a building that size.
Is there a contingency number currently in the cost?
Yes, always 10%.
Okay, that's what I wanted to
Yep. So with this, we do have that confidence level in this number. Bidding is always something that is, unique. Newark went to bid in 2022 for this project. And they're just now constructing. So they were probably in one situation when we built the SWAT garage, when we built the snow removal building at the airport, they were building as well. So you remember those steel prices and those things. That number has at least leveled, if not dropped a little bit in some of those areas.
What do these things take to build? A year or 8 months or what?
8 or less. Where we're putting them is flat ground, very little drainage work that needs done.
Plain build?
Yeah.
No problem with the pipelines?
It's never, and not close to a pipeline. It's been a farm field since the beginning of time. We'll have a little bit of drainage just because field tile. Tony's got something he's going to rain on my parade.
T hangers are going over the.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Tony, and the T hanger aspect, Tony, in that process of water and sewer, is pulling out our lift station. That's where that's going. So, that would be corrected, I'm sure, perfectly by Tony's vendor when he replaces that lift station. So that would be filled. It's like 15 feet deep or something like that. And I'm sure we'll fill it. And
And I don't know. I'm not understanding this discussion.
there's directly underneath this hangar, there is a place where all of our sewage goes and gets pumped out into the system. That's being relocated to Tony's project. So what he's saying is that, while
It's not being relocated because of this project.
No.
It was being relocated anyway.
Being relocated so we can add extra services to the airport. The other hangars that are there. And also we're relocating it so that way it can be built on.
Objectively, should that relocation be considered a cost of this project or not?
Well, it's an ARP project that we put together. It's not, it's to service the airport service.
If these weren't being built, would you still be doing that project?
Would scale this project down, probably not have to do.
All right,
I mean, if you weren't building in where that T hangar is, you wouldn't have to move the lift station.
in any event, that project is already funded.
Funded and we're bidding it out currently. So that, my point is that project will be under construction. And hangar here, well, after this. T hangar.
Okay.
So timing wise, you can't say 8 months from now.
Yeah.
So from your utility standpoint, I'm not asking you to endorse or not endorse their recommendation, but from a utilities director standpoint, there's nothing about this project that causes you heartburn or some reason why you would be opposed to proceeding on this?
Narrowed down where we're gonna put things, because that's where we put services. So when we get a layout, it kind of moves a little bit as they work on the airport side. So
We
you
could,
make a decision and say, this is where it's gonna be, this is my project and service.
we just relocated hangars in a way, and that impacts the water plant every time. These T hangars don't have a restroom, so, you know, them moving only is impacted by the sewer that's being.
All right, go ahead.
So, basically from here on out is the time for finance discussion. We've had a meeting, with many folks, and I think we're really prepared to have those discussions, but I probably am not the best at that. So, I'm gonna hand that piece off unless you have other questions about the structure and the physical nature of the construction and operation.
I'll write this minute unless either of my colleagues have questions before we turn to the financing.
Well, sorry, Dave. Let's talk about the runway. So you and I have had conversations in the past, and so we talked about, there's a thing we can do with the runway that makes it, better in foul weather.
Grooving.
Right, and so is that, I know it's a separate project, but is that something that's on your list of things to do, and if so, when?
The evaluation 10-year plan is whether to groove or to apply for funds to concrete. Concrete gives you the advantage of groove, but it increases your weight load, which increases the size of your plane. So concrete's better, but more expensive. Grooving could be done in a few months, very quickly, ultimately giving us more ability to land in severe weather, jets and things like that. Some jets can't land here when there's bad weather just because of the nature of our runway.
So what would it cost us to groove the runway?
I don't have the number.
Right.
It's definitely nowhere near the cost of construction of concrete.
I understand that. I would be interested in hearing more about that. If you have time.
And we can get that from CMT in a day, turn that around.
Thank you.
Those are.
All right, Commissioner Levesey on the issues up to financing.
I just have one question regarding how your leases are written. Are they one year, multiple years?
T hangers right now. We actually have Josh and Amy, Josh and now Amy have done great jobs in kind of helping us through that lease process, as they have taken on as our legal counsel from the past. And the box hangers, we would anticipate longer based on their financing compliance. But we know there's limitations.
You have provisions for rate increases in those leases.
Those leases do now have a 3% increase per year. The airport authority typically votes on those every year just to make sure whether they wish to relieve them. For these hangars, we wouldn't have that. We wouldn't want that ability. That would be board's discretion.
And you mentioned either steel or wood construction. I'd be in favor of steel.
We bid them steel with an option for wood just to see what the pricing would be, but steel would be the preferred method. And they have to be blue.
All right, let's go to financing and Michael, are you leading that discussion?
I'll just
One of
make
the
a
minors.
couple comments real quick regarding the financing. We, as John had mentioned, we sat down with Jim Boston, and Mike Baird or Mike Burns from Baird, and Ani and talked about some different options of how we could actually come up with the money with this type of project. And there are really two different ways to go about it. One is you pay cash, and the other is you finance through a bond. The consensus seems to be not only amongst us, but also Fifth Third Bank, that you now would be a good time to conserve cash as far as looking out to the future and what our investments could be on cash. And the financing part through a bond probably is what we would recommend moving forward on this type of project, whether it's the 5 million, the 10 million. If we just go with just the T hangars at 1.7 million, you know, that's kind of debatable, but we think at the $5 million level, more than likely our recommendation would be, you know, conserve the cash and keep those in the investment environment we currently have and move forward with a bond financing type situation. I think that's what Mike Burns here from Baird is going to discuss a little bit about what things we had to go through on that portion of it. When we do talk bonds, there are two different kinds of bonds also. There's the exempt, tax exempt bond and the non-tax exempt. We went through bond counsel to get an idea from them on this type of project. We would have to go with taxable type bond moving forward. That makes the rate that we have to offer a little bit higher to make it more attractive to an investor. If it was a non or if it was a tax exempt bond, we could offer a little lower rate, but moving forward, that's through bond counsel. That's where we are.
So just on the financing front, obviously we want to talk about what I'm going to call the front end of financing. But I also am curious if you're prepared for a discussion about what I'm going to call the back end of that. And when I say back end, I'm saying, okay, you know, should we pay cash or should we borrow money to get the $5 million? Understood. You know, we'll sort through some of those questions on that issue here shortly. On the back side, wanting to understand the mechanics of how does the general fund get plugged back in, so to speak, from the leases. In other words, you know, as much support as we all have for the airport and want to be helpful or whatever, you know, just having the general fund do this and not be, you know, compensated through the leases is, you know, not where I think we've been talking about. So I just want you to know that I am curious. I have questions on the front end, and then I also have questions on the back end to get the general fund rehabilitated.
And I think on that particular question, if we want to move forward to that real quick here, John did put together, you know, a table here where he kind of talks about, you know, in year one, our estimate for a hangar revenue would be 108,000. General fund contribution, and this is with going through the bonding process. Yeah, if we go through a financing process and put a bond out there, the general fund contribution in excess of the $108,000, you know, there's going to be another 186,000 to service the bond.
And that's fine. I'm just looking at totals and trying to make sure I understand. But when in the right hand column, you have GF contribution comes down at 3.7. Right. So I don't understand how does they borrow $5 million but only cost 3.7?
Well, that's in excess of what we're also recovering on the hangar revenue. So that's just strictly not money that's been recovered through rents. So over the life of
I'm
30,
totally lost.
over 35 years, you'll be or the airport will be collecting rent every month on each one of those hangars. That amount that we collect over the life of the is it 6.54 million is what our estimate would be on the collection of rent over 35 years.
So with financing, total project goes from 5 million to build, with finance costs, things like that, or I'm sorry, 4 million to build, 10 million in finance. When you include the financing over the 35 years, total cost, build and finance, 10 million, without refinancing or anything like that.
I understand.
So basically the split then becomes the revenues of the hangars pay off 6.584 of that. The fund anticipated to pay 7.6. because of the financing doubles the cost, the revenues never pay off. The revenues alone can never pay off earlier than 35 years. And then recoup the general fund would take care of that. If you wanted to be completely.
And so tell me how then, even with the current investment environment, spending another almost $5 million. I mean, why wouldn't we be better off paying cash? And I'm not a finance guy, so.
But would we be better on? I think that's a little bit what Mike
All right.
discussed here.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Again, my name is Mike Burns. I'm with Baird, and thank you, commissioners, for allowing me to come this morning and administration. That's a very good question. There's two ways to look at it. One is opportunity loss on your cash, right? So say you have $5 million that you could use on this new construction, this new hangar. You can use that cash to pay for the construction to be done. Or you can take that cash and you can invest it. And it's a little different time. I'm sure everyone knows where your investment earnings are and what that looks like nowadays. In today's world, and you have your investment advisor here. He can speak a little better about what the investment rates would be, or your treasurer can.
What's less than 5.5?
But it's less than 5.5%. You're right. STAR Ohio right now is about 5.04. What is the investment rate for the county's money?
Right now, it's 2.7.
Okay. But we think that's going to go up a little bit with new investments as old investments roll off the books and new investments come on. Where are you thinking investment rates are for like a 3 and a 5 year? Somewhere in the 4. So the net cost is really 1.5% is the net cost of the interest expense on
In
this
today's
market.
environment,
In today's environment.
which could change in 6 months or a year.
Could change tomorrow. Yep, you're exactly right. For better or for worse,
Right.
right? It could go either way. That's the one side of it is the loss of additional interest income.
Right.
So it's kind of like, if you go and you buy a new Honda, you can get a 0% interest loan or, 0.25% interest loan. The other side is the flexibility of being paid in cash. And the flexibility of having cash in the future is something to think about with all the, changes in law that's coming up and funding sources going forward. It comes down to, do you want to have that cash and maintain that cash in the future for future cash flow flexibility at the counter? Now, the nice thing about this, and this is really for more than the public, the community, the administration knows this. I am so impressed with your county over the last 5-6 years. And you went from here to here financially. You're in really, really good shape financially. So yes, you could use cash and pay for this project. And if that's what you choose to do, that's great. But having that cash and having the flexibility of that cash in the future, I think pays its dividends long term. The other side of it, I know Commissioner Davis, we spoke numerous times about this, is a rating. Great agencies like cash. And I think where you're at now, I think there's at least a discussion to be had for an upgrade to your rating. By no means I'm saying we're going to get one. We just had our issuer commentary come out, about a month ago. It maintained your rating where it's at. But I did an analysis that looks like you deserve at least to be in discussion of an upgrade. And part of the reason why you're in discussion for an upgrade is because your tax base has grown so much, and also because your cash has increased over the years because you've done the right thing financially as a county. Does that answer your question?
Sir, thank you.
I understand the staff recommendation favors A, favors B, doesn't favor C. That was clear, unequivocal, period. Is there a staff recommendation on financing? Or is it, no, you pick, boss?
I was surprised to know, I take it home, right? I am a simple person when it comes to the finance piece. I took it home, and I thought about like my home mortgage in this equation, but I don't have the savings account and the conservative good properties of how we've been for so many years. I mean, not many people have that. To me, it's like asking, you got $1 million in the bank, do you take out $40,000 to buy a garage? Do you finance it?
So I understood Michael Caper to say that the recommendation of the board was to do a non-tax exempt bond.
We cannot
I'm, s-
not do a non-tax exempt bond. It's a belief situation of your use.
The recommendation after talking to the treasurer and our council is, moving forward, to move forward on a tax or a non-tax exempt bond. Now, that's just the recommendation. Obviously, a lot like John said, from a personal standpoint, if I go to build a house, I finance. If I go to build a shed, I pay cash. If I build a garage, that's where it gets a little bit. And this is probably a little bit more like a garage. We're not talking about a huge building. There is cash available. There is a way to pay for it through cash, and that's a commissioner's decision. I mean, we're not saying there's no right or wrong way to do it. I think just the recommendation is, yes, conserve the cash and forward with bonding process.
Let me ask Michael Burns a question. Is this decision irreversible? And I guess the question I'm coming to is, if we pay the $5 million in cash and just go get these things done, and then a year or two from now, we wish we had bonded it out, is that train has left the station?
For the most part. Depends on timing, Commissioner. And that's a very good thought. I thought you were going to go the other way, which I'll explain in a second.
The pay down?
But pay it off.
Yeah, no, I am going that way too.
Yes.
I'm going one at a time.
So let me answer your first question first. You, the county, could pass what you call a reimbursement resolution. And if you pass a reimbursement resolution, you could spend cash today and reimburse yourself with a taxable bond in the future. But there's a limitation. We're not talking 3 years from now. And I'm not an attorney, so I have to check with Dennis, your bond counsel, to find out. Could you pay cash today and then issue taxable bonds in 6 months? Yes, for sure. Also pass a reimbursement resolution. Can you pay cash today and reimburse yourself 3 years from now? I don't think so. I think there's a limitation of how far out you can go. That comes down to a legal question. On the other side, where I thought you were going when you first started asking the question,
I was.
is could we pay off these bonds? So say we invest and say your investment advisor, no one knows what rates are going to be. None of us can predict it. Say investment rates drop a lot and you're sitting on a lot of money. And you're like, I just want to use that money and pay off the bonds because we can't earn, we're only earning 0.25. You can pay them off early. And that's through what you call an optional call redemption or a prepayment option. And that's usually about 5 to 7 years out. It's the earliest that you can prepay it.
As early as we could do it would be 5 to 7 years.
Yes, without costing more on the financing costs. Because the shorter the call, the investors will want a higher yield on the bonds. So 7 years is about the break even in terms of we do a 7-year prepayment. It won't really cost you anymore. Do a 7-year call. If you go to maybe a 3 or 4 year, it's going to cost you a higher interest rate on the bonds.
Yeah, walk us through again though. I mean, and I understand all the numbers that Fifth Third and the Treasurer's Office have mentioned in terms of the current rates that we're getting from an investment standpoint. But under almost no scenario do those rates exceed 5.5%. The odds of the Fed just keeping the hammer down for the foreseeable future would seem to be low. But I understand nobody can predict. But why isn't it just that simple, I guess? I mean,
there's no right or wrong answer. Every client of mine's different. And if we would have done this tax exempt, which we tried, your team tried to make this tax exempt. If it was done tax exempt, in my mind, it's a no-brainer. We should do financing 100% because for tax exempt, rate would have been lower than what you're earning. Okay? No-brainer. We're stuck doing it taxable.
Question,
Yes, sir.
why not tax exempt?
It's because of the use and the tenants that are going to be occupying this space are for-profit entities. And that knocks us out of the tax exempt eligibility.
Doctor, can we, I just want to turn to Dr. Brown for a moment, because I know you have a passion for these kinds of discussions. Strong feelings or opinions at this point on what I'll call the A or the B, the borrow or the pay cash?
I think that you're in a fortunate situation to even talk about being able to pay cash. It is high enough to do that. I think you could do a combination and give yourself a resolution to reimburse yourself as well.
That's a great idea. And we can definitely do that for sure.
One thing that we haven't talked about is how the operations might change. There might be expenses relating to the operations itself. You have a contract now for the operations of the jail. I'm sorry, jail's on my mind, so thinking about the financing for that for the airport. And there may be some additional costs that come with this as well, which is what would make me lean toward the concept of combination.
I like that idea a lot. It's a great idea. It's kind of me in the middle. Only challenge we have though on that, Dr. Brown, is if it only be 4 million and we're looking to go 35 years and make the cash flow work. The problem is the principal payments on an annual basis are probably going to be below 100,000 per year. And when that happens, it makes it harder to sell the bonds. Not meaning I cannot sell the bonds. I'll sell the bonds easily. But when it's harder to sell the bonds, that means your interest rate on the bonds are going to go up a little bit because you're below 100,000.
You don't know what other projects you have either. There may be other projects that you can fold into the selling.
And that's the way around this situation. But keep in mind, you have taxable bonds. Not sure what the other bonds will be, if they're tax exempt or taxable.
Right?
Maybe two different
Portions of
bonds.
it.
But just keep that in mind. I can sell them all day long. But it's a matter of it drops below 100,000. They call that, investors don't look at those as something they really want to buy. It's the size. A great idea. Does that make sense?
Would all this be in 2023, John Coaches?
Construction design.
Cost components. Would all the costs come home in 23, or would some of the costs come home in 24?
At this point, 24, because we'd be a little delayed on water for the T hangers. We'd have design, we'd have bidding. The majority of the costs would come in at the end of 23 and starting 24. I would imagine steel is going to be a delay.
Which is actually a good point, Commissioner Davis. You're probably thinking this. I know you always think things through. But you're going to have interest earnings on this $5 million too during construction. And that's that in Star, Ohio, sure. You got 5% interest rates. You're going to earn some interest earnings on that as well. That could be used to offset some of your.
To a concern you mentioned regarding the $100,000 break point in terms of marketability of the bonds. I don't get that. I mean, if debt service payments are $295, why are you saying it would be below 100 if we paid $1 million in cash and only borrowed $4? Or is that what we're talking about? Borrowing 5 or borrowing 4?
It would be, the total cost was just short of 4.87.
It'd be about 4.4 million, rounded up, is the project cost that they're talking about. And I'm just speculating. Say we do 50-50. We only have a 2.4 million and a 2 million cash, $2.4 million financing. You spread that 2.4 out over 35 years. It's going to be less than 100,000 per year of principal payment.
We have to stretch it out that long?
The only reason we do that is for cash flow purposes. Shorter the better, from my standpoint, shorter the better. But for the county standpoint, you're looking at cash flow, that last page or this page, you're looking at cash flow. So just like your home mortgage, when you buy your home when you're 20 years old or whatever, you probably did a 30-year mortgage, right? You did that and then you can afford the monthly payment.
Right.
It's the same story
But
here.
you cut the principal in half.
Could, if you choose to, yes. And I'm happy to do that. That's great. You know, again, we're just looking cash flows, the reason why. And that's a way around. You're correct, Commissioner. We could finance 2.5 million, put 2 million in, or whatever the numbers are, and do it over 15 years, 20 years.
I guess I'll just say it this way, straw proposal or whatever. I am very comfortable with our future cash flow situation if we were to drop 2 million in cash right now. I mean, and again, I'm not asking for any changes to your estimates for 2023. I'm not dealing with that. But there are signs and tea leaves that would suggest, right? What 2 million over in revenue this year? Possibly. And, you know, again, I'm not trying to get in your turf on that issue, but I mean, we wouldn't even notice. I mean,
It is. You're in a great spot. Like I said from the get-go, you guys have come a long way. I've been with you for over 10 years now, working with you, and you came a long way over those years. And, you know, some of it might have been luck, some of it was great leadership, you know,
Really
some
just
was
the
a great
last
community.
5 years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
So it's getting big.
So you guys are doing really, really well financially, and you're in a great spot. And you're right, $2 million is not going to break or make the county. You know,
Part that also would be is look at shorter term. We need to get to a certain number as far as go ahead and look at what it would cost if we drop it down to 50 years or 25 years for the
15 years.
yeah, so I guess what I would say,
agree with you, the 2 million, not an issue.
not an issue. So what I'm thinking, is you all are done with this presentation, right? I want you to leave this meeting with clear, unequivocal, go forward guidance, right? Because talk, right? Then you gotta stop talking, right? That's where I think we are. So if we say yes A, yes B, and 2 million cash and sort it out using your best judgment on the bonding, is that adequate guidance or do you need more from us?
So absolutely. And I think that helps us get through the bidding process too. So we can concrete those numbers in after bids come, after all we're dealing with is estimates at this point. So if you have a go forward and we go off bid while paperwork's working out, we'll know.
So let's get to the back end because I don't want to be surprised in the future on this issue. Rent comes in, you know, John Doe comes in, they paid their $450 for the month, you know, and the airport, somebody at the airport collected the $450, right?
Our office will.
Made payable to who?
Commissioners or,
No, right now, when somebody makes a rent check,
it's either the commissioners or airport, they're both.
they can write it either way and it just happens.
Yeah.
You take the money.
Then what account does it go in
Right now it goes into their operating fund.
for the airport?
Yeah.
After this is done and somebody writes a check for $450 for their rent, where's that check going?
Should go into the debt service fund. But there's some
things you can do. You can have an agreement with the airport board for that to happen, and we can work out the accounting of that.
So just so you guys are clear, you know, clear unequivocal direction. We, the commissioners, want it to be airtight, not like, you know, wink, nod, 2 years later, tell me something different. Airtight that money's coming back to the general.
And the airport authority, the board, we have 100% known from the start that we will not see the revenues of these hangars
Do
directly.
you need to scrape operational costs?
No, because we anticipate that the fuel charges, the fuel that happens with this increase in flight and the growth and everything else will more than cover our operations. We've got to a point where our operations are extremely solid with your support on matching grants.
I'm gonna come back to Stacy for a minute. The two, cash, borrow the balance, airtight the general fund on the back end. Does any of that cause you concern? Come on, rock and roll.
I'm sure if the economy tanks and everybody sells their aircrafts. That part does.
Thank you, doom and gloom. No,
Okay, so you're concerned about the possibility that things might not turn out as rosy as originally projected.
I mean, it's a
But are you concerned?
thought.
I understand, and I get that. But are you worried about the health of the general fund?
No,
Right. Or
not.
anybody?
And I would add, we look back through the 2009 and current. I think the worst year we found was that 2010 was less than 20% unoccupied. So we still maintained 80 and above, even through the worst part of that economy. Pilots, the last thing they want to do is give up their, even if they don't fly, they'll soar.
So I'm going to come back to Michael. I want you to understand contextually, this commission is a little bit antagonistic towards debt, right?
Yep.
But we're compromising here, right? We're listening and understanding those concerns about cash flow and the future and what will or won't happen. That's why we're not dropping a 5-ball on it, right? Because we're compromising in response to those concerns, right? And, you may or may not have an understanding of how much your availability and service to us is valued, but I want you to know
I appreciate
it
that.
is very, very much valued.
I appreciate that.
There's probably a little more nickel in it for you if we do 5 instead. And I get that. But it's not about that. It's not like we're trying to take money out of your pocket on this. It's not that. That had anything to do with that.
And please don't feel that way. I said from the get-go when I met you, or not when I met you, but when I started talking about this project, I'm here for long. And this is a small financing for me too. 2 million, 4 million. I'm never going to jeopardize relationship with a client over a $2 million or $4 million deal. I said from the get-go that, it may make sense just to pay cash. And if that's the case, the way you go, I'll support you 100%. Because there's really no solid yes or no answer.
Right.
My opinion is how I live my life, my own personal checkbook. If I can get 0% or 1% interest rate on a financing, I'd rather do that and finance something than pay cash and take out my stock.
So
But there's no right or wrong answer, so whatever you decide is great.
I think the play is to, if you need to do like a round number on the debt, like say, well, it'd be just make more sense if we just do an even 3 on the debt. And so then the cash was only 1.7 or something. And then the general fund could handle the change orders that are coming.
Right, right. So that's my concern.
Right? And still be in the 2. You guys see what I'm saying on that? Does that make sense? Yeah.
That makes sense. You know what I can do? I can write a whole bunch of scenarios. Send it to you. I can
No,
run a
no,
2 million,
no.
2.5.
I finished this
Okay,
today.
keep it simple and go.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do
I
it.
would like
Okay.
to see. I mean, like,
A 15 years from.
that's feasible.
So you want 3 million or 2.5? What do you want, commissioners?
I think we're talking 3.
Yeah, 3.
Around?
I'd go 3, that way this percent.
That leaves the general little change order room.
Okay.
Right.
So 3 million in 35 years? And 3 million in 15, show them both? Or one or the other?
We can see.
15, 20, 25.
Well, no, we need to decide. I mean, I compromised 20. I don't like the idea of going out there.
I just want to go out 35.
And the decision really doesn't matter right now. We can make that decision this 10, 15, 20, 30 years later.
Sure.
But for your knowledge, I want to make sure you're, educated on what you want to do. I'm happy to do.
Yeah,
that.
I understand.
So why don't we agree to that and then have him come back with scenarios and we can.
That's fine. That's fine. What I want to avoid, right? Because of the history of other situations over the last 20 years in this county, right? We, the commissioners, cannot be the cause of delay point forward. We've caused enough by discussing it for long enough, right? Go, right? Forgiveness versus permission. Let's go.
So do we, just mechanically, do we need to do something today to make that happen?
We would need some engineering, architectural. Within our scope, we already have that identified as part of a master plan process. So we can bid that out for architectural support, or we can use the existing airport contract.
I'm asking if we as a board need to do
Oh.
something today to vote on
No,
something.
they just need a green light right now. There will be lots of paperwork, right?
So go.
Go.
All right. Rick, any questions? Or just Any additional guidance that you think you need from us to be greenlit here?
But Michael's gonna
I don't think so.
do $1 million in 35 years, that 3 million. in
3 million
It's
at
gonna come back.
35, 15 and 16. Just three. Okay?
Just say thank you to Rick, Stacy, Michael, Mike,
My other board members too.
any other board members. I asked you to dream big, you did, and though we didn't get all the way to where I was hoping, we got a long way down that path. And you know, through our conversations, I appreciate your being conservative on the big thing, right? And I think the approach is right. When the potential customer comes, when that new company comes in and wants to do a build to suit, we're ready to go. So I appreciate all the effort that everybody's put into this. Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't want you to have to redo your charts, John, but I just I just want to recognize that some of this discussion that we just had brings the 3.7 number down.
Oh, certainly, absolutely. And I can read, when I have that, when I know the debt service for the 15, I can recalculate.
Because right now you're showing a differential where the general fund's upside down at $3.7 million at the end of 35 years.
And please put that rent at $1,500.
Well, you know, the market's gonna,
I know, but I mean, in your projections,
Yeah.
anything,
I'll make a call about it. Yeah.
I just want to thank Michael for all of his
Yeah,
help during
absolutely.
this. It's, I mean, every time I picked up the phone or sent an email, very helpful in moving this conversation forward. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
you probably had the same kind of conversation with a lot of commissioners, don't you? I know you do. Thank you all very much. That's it.
Davis, we still looking at 11 o'clock or move it back as far as investment advisory committee?
I see, we're gonna push forward. We should be okay at 11.
Okay. we'll be back.
Nice. Do we have anything between now and 11? Other than get through this meeting? What time? Yeah, making it. This time, the commission sets aside an opportunity for voters and taxpayers to address the commission. If you would like to do so, please come to the podium and begin with your name and residential address. We do have a 3-minute time limit. And if I ask you to please conclude your remarks, that is because you have reached the time limit, and I would appreciate you doing so. I don't want to argue with people, and I don't want to be rude or whatever, but please know that we have an escalating series of decisions that we could make to make sure that nobody is ever confused about who's running this meeting. Please.
My name is Ray Steeman, 2444 West Point Road, Lancaster, Ohio. What I have in my hand here is a report by the Ohio Conservatives PAC evaluating Speaker Jason Stevens' first 100 days, which is a very poor record. And I think the 22 people that changed their vote need to apologize to us conservatives. Admit they were wrong. Because the most dangerous move by Stevens is that he is paving the way for far left radicals to enshrine on demand abortion into Ohio's Constitution by backing H.J.R. 1. And Jason has already currently the only obstacle to protecting Ohio's founding document from being hijacked by out-of-state special interest groups. So far, the first 100 days, this group has not come forth with anything that the conservative group felt was important. And also, the fact is that he was elected by Democrats with the help of the Republicans. In the past 100 days, the Ohio House of Representation has barely been a functioning body. It's evident that Stevens and the Blue Crew of 22 are woefully unprepared to lead. And Ohioans deserve better than failed leadership and broken campaign promises. We elected a Republican supermajority to see conservative priorities become law. Ohio conservatives hope Jason Stevens will step up and lead, but if the past 100 days are of any indication, we are not very optimistic. So you have situation from the conservatives in Ohio, and they're going to hold you to it. So I wanted to pray this morning. Lord, we have conservative ideas that have been shoved aside, and we have some problems to work out. So be with this body in Ohio that they might make up for some of the things they failed to do. And we pray, Lord, that you guide and direct as we see here this morning. The proper questions need to be asked and followed through. And we need to see this conversation between the commission and the people of this county. So we ask for your help in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Rick.
Good morning. I guess I'm a bit disappointed because we hear all this about how important the airport is. And by the way, there is something here about medical tyranny in the skies. And yet when we come, and we're not paid, but for our time here, but you are. We come and we are told, hey, just 3 minutes to get your point across. This doesn't go over well when we're sitting back here, and sometimes you have us come up at the very beginning. Other times you wait until somebody gives their presentation, which is 30 or 40 or 50, 60 minutes long. Okay. Medical tyranny in the skies. Health is so important. That's more important than air travel, I think, right now, because they're doing so much to our bodies. They really are. And if you folks have your heads in the sand, I don't know what else to say otherwise. In 7-month period in 22, there's been 300% increase in long-term disabilities among the pilots. That's 300%. Did you get it? Josh Yoder is a commercial pilot and a co-founder of U.S. Freedom Flyers, an all-volunteer group of American transportation professionals. And Josh reveals that what's really going on behind the scenes at the FAA since the rollout of the COVID shots, and who knows what else they want to bring out. It's certainly not about safety. Yeah, and this comes from Matt Staver. Matt Staver has taken issues to the Supreme Court, and he's won every one of them. And then there's an Army gal. How much have I heard you speak about really how much there needs to be support for the military? Here's an Army gal. She's had 2 heart attacks since the COVID vax. Every doctor, she says, I've seen, and the Department of Defense doctors had stated, but hadn't written out that they thought it was a reaction to the COVID vaccine. They stated that they saw growing numbers of people getting complications, but they were told they were supposed to speak up about it, and that's what she was told. Health complications are she's seen 17 doctors, 4 changes for stations, and my running heart rate is at a peak of 170, now I've hit 202 now. Military assigns LODs when National Guard members get injured or comes down to an illness. But you know what? She doesn't get that. And she's now being charged $225 for neurology visits and so on and so forth. So I'm just asking, where are we really concerned about the military? And this is really happening in the military. How many other military doctors and personnel, I have to ask this question, are being restricted from stating their real facts and truth? Okay, I will. We've confirmed that this mRNA stuff is in the food supply. That's health, folks. That's health. It's going into your body and it's going to be going to my body, and it's water too. I think that's more important than an airport right now. Right now, we've confirmed this mRNA stuff is in the food and it's just being injected in the pigs and the other animals that we are eating. What's priority? What's priority?
Good morning. I'm Melissa Connor, and I live at 7710 Cattail Road in Pleasantville. I wanted to let you know that Citizens for Fair Fields is a pro-agriculture grassroots group, and we are hosting an educational meeting on Saturday, April 29th at 9 a.m. at the Millersport United Methodist Church. And I wanted to invite everyone in the room to attend. We'll be offering a tutorial for those folks who are new to the solar discussion, and we'll be listening to firsthand accounts of what it is like to live and farm next to a solar development. It's our hope that the county commissioners will be able to attend and learn more along with the people of Fairfield County so that we can finish that conversation and do what is best for the future generations of Fairfield County. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Morning, commissioners and others in attendance. I just wanted to take the opportunity this morning to introduce myself. My name is Peter Marbach. I am the district representative for Senator Vance's office and am the liaison for Central Ohio, including Fairfield County. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of who I was. We're, with Senator Vance being new to office, we're working hard to build our infrastructure and our network across the state. So I'm represent one of 6 kind of geographical regions that our office has divided. So I've got counterparts throughout the state as well, but wanted to be sure you have a point of contact with our office if there's issues with you're dealing with regarding federal grant programs and applications. We can help with that. If you are interacting with federal agencies, be it the EPA, FAA, Department of Transportation, and any number of the projects you have working on and will continue to be developing, obviously with Intel being kind of the biggest investment coming into the state, and all the improvements that are going to be needed to deal with that. We can be helpful in any way possible. We have a good team in our Columbus office and then satellite offices across the state. So I will wrap up my comments, but appreciate your time. I will also follow up with the clerk with my contact information. I can give the commissioners some cards here, but anyone else who may need it can get that way.
Thank you.
And I do appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to address the commission at this time? Uh-oh, here comes Kathy.
Good morning. I wanted to take just a couple minutes to say thank you to Rick and the county and those who have been a part of the Workforce Center project, and state that it's just a really fabulous resource for the county. We do Project Playhouse there. Their students have helped us with cutting pieces for Project Playhouse, but We are also going to be there this Saturday with a partner of ours, Lithopolis United Methodist Church, building all the walls for a Pleasantville house. And without a space like this, we would be doing that no matter the weather outside. And my grandma says I'm made of sugar. I mean, I'm just saying. So when it rains, I mean, it can be very complicated for me, but no. But truly, it's a great resource for us because we have that space to do a big project like this. We'll have over 55 volunteers from the church, including about 15 youth that go all the way down to 3 years old that will be swinging a hammer with supervision, don't worry. But it's going to allow us to continue to do projects like that. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Rick and his team and what else happens out there and as we go forward in the future. So thank you for the opportunity to partner there and your continued support of what we do in this county. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to address the commission at this time? Hearing none, we're going to mix things up a little bit. I'd like to go to the administration update, specifically highlights and resolutions, please.
We have 19 resolutions for the voting meeting today. One is a resolution to appropriate 50,000 from unappropriated for liability coverage there. And then the engineer's office has a notice to commence resolution for the Canal Road Bridge project. Those are the two I would highlight.
Thank you. My colleagues have any opposition to going to our voting pattern at this point? Not at all. Plan would be to get through the other things that are already scheduled, then complete review after that at some point. We're really hitting some hard stops here. Another day or another time?
Another time.
All right. Well, in any event,
Bonnie?
can we stay down here and go to the voting pattern? Sure. So let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. Please rise if you're able and join us in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Rochelle, do we have any announcements?
There are none.
Move on to the approval of minutes for the meeting of April 11th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Minutes are approved 3-0. From the Commissioner's Office, Resolution 2023-4.18.a. A resolution to appropriate from unappropriated funds and major expenditure object category for Fund Number 1001.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0. From the Fairfield County Dog Shelter, Resolution 2023-4.18.b. A resolution to appropriate from unappropriated and major expenditure object categories for the Dog Shelter Fund Number 2002.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yeah.
Motion passes 3-0. From Fairfield County Emergency Management Agency, Resolution 2023-4.18.c. A resolution authorizing the approval of repayment of an advance to the general fund from EMA 2774 Hazard Mitigation Grant Program Fund.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0. From the Fairfield County Engineer, Resolution 2023-4.18.d. A resolution to appropriate from unappropriated in a major expenditure object category, County Engineer 2024. Motor vehicle for contractual services.
In Fairfield County Engineer, I move items D, E, F, G, H, I, J, and K.
Second.
Discussion.
Commissioner Levesey may want to know that bridge is, you already know where that's at, from State Route 37 to Millersport Road. Now Road, that bridge probably closed for about 10 weeks. Okay.
Thank you.
Ask a question on a resolution we passed, I think, that seems like about a month ago. I'm trying to get a picture in my head of the bridge on Coon Path Road that needs to be replaced and will result in closure of Coon Path. Can you Can you help me with the location?
That's just west of, a culvert because of the side, because they're 10 feet.
It's called a bridge, but it's a culvert.
Yep.
That's why I couldn't find it. I was driving out there and I'm like, where's that doggone bridge? And there it was.
It's just west of Stringtown. As you're going up the hill, King Path kind of makes a little S curve as you go up the hill. There's a lot of guardrail along the south side and there's a creek.
I think I got it in my head now.
We actually went there for a viewing.
Yeah.
And it's like you were taking your life in your hands.
Yeah, it's a bit.
Don't look traffic.
All right, further discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Motion's passed 3-0. From Fairfield County Family, Adult, and Children First Council, Resolution 2023-4.18.L, a resolution authorizing the approval of partial repayment of an advance to the general fund from Fund Number 7521.
Under Family, Adult, and Children First Council, I move items L and M.
Second.
Discussion?
The other resolution, we received a small grant from, the Diversity Inclusion Empowerment Fund Foundation. So grateful for that, for that. So
Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Motion's passed 3-0. From Fairfield County Job and Family Services, Resolution 2023-4.18.N, a resolution to approve a memo receipt and expenditure for Fairfield County Job and Family Services Fund 2758 reimbursing Fund 2018.
Under Job and Family Services, I move items N, O, P, Q, and R.
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Motion's passed 3-0. On payment of bills, Resolution 2023-4.18.S, a resolution authorizing the approval of payment of invoices for departments that need Board of Commissioners approval.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Levesey?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
All right, before we return to review, do either of my colleagues need a few minutes or are you good to go?
I'm fine.
All right, good to go. So back to our review agenda and I lost Amy, so there's nothing on legal.
Indicated there was.
That's fine. County admin update, pared down best you can.
I have it really tight.
Let's go.
ARP plan update from the 30.6, 23.7 appropriated, 12.6 expended, and 3.5 uncovered or obligated. Just want to highlight that last week at the Child Abuse Prevention Month breakfast, our own Commissioner Levesey was recognized with the Partner for Kids Award. Great event, Dave.
You heard that all the way down there.
I did.
Well, thank you.
And then lastly, we conducted a diaper drive for a local nonprofit called Bottoms Up, and the county employees collected 2,447 diapers. So they were really wowed by the numbers we provided there. So just that quick highlight and recognition. County Auditor Dr. Brown thanked Chris Wagner for volunteering for the Board of Elections. He's participating in the administrative leave program created in 14 to support the Board of Elections. Dr. Brown would also like to thank Miranda Gray, Program Coordinator for Adam H., for providing mental health first aid training for the County Auditor employees. And Fairfield County Reporter Lisa McKenzie would like to recognize Amberly Hannum and HR for her outstanding performance and going above and beyond during the recruiting and hiring process for the Recorder's Office. Thanks, Amberly. And then I'd like to thank the county administration team, especially Jeff last week, for keeping everything running so smoothly while I was out of the office. And thanks to Stacy, she filled in for Christina doing payroll. So hats off to those folks. Rochelle, calendar review and invitations received, please.
Yeah, Rochelle, if you would just do item number I first, please.
Ohio University Lancaster Dean Dr. Jared Tudor has a farewell reception on April 21st at the Ohio University Lancaster.
So let's touch on that for just a second. One, I was incredibly disappointed to hear of this next career move, or I don't know really how to describe it. But I wanted to get Rick's early read on the potential impact that this might have with regard to workforce center operations.
Yeah, I mean, Dean Tudor was a big advocate and everything changed, you know, when he stepped into here with OU's attitude toward the workforce center. My belief is that they've seen that opportunity, especially on the engineering side. So I see that dedication to be there. Jared's a great salesperson on, you know, what we're doing there, and that will be severely missed. But I have a meeting in a couple hours with the vice provost over all the regional campuses. So we were clearly a priority for him to talk to right away, along with Chris Anderson, who was the interim dean before when Dean Smith left. So the fact that we're already on their dance card, this certainly makes me feel very optimistic. I've met with Dr. McNeil numerous times already, who's basically was Jared's boss, and he's impressed with the workforce center and has said that they needed more things like this throughout. So I feel optimistic. It's definitely a loss. Jared's a good friend and did a lot for what he's done here, but he will still be in our orbit, which is good. Hopefully be a part of the search team. I'm also serve on the council for OUL, so from that I will be on the search team, and hopefully they ask the county to be a part of it.
So if I might just, I would, if I were in your shoes about to go into that meeting, right? Certainly kindness and politeness and humility and appreciation, those things would all be front and center. What I would secretly have in my back pocket is an awareness that the workforce has a constituency now of support from some of the most influential, powerful people in the state. That constituency can be put to work. Commissioner Levesey, or was it Commissioner Peck?
Yeah, it was me. So I would say, you know, once we got to know Jared Tudor and the energy and enthusiasm and results that he brought to OUL, I think it wasn't really difficult to see that he was not going to be there for a long term, that he's a rising star in that community. And I asked him a question 6 months ago, you know, how long did he think he was going to be around? I think the idea that he could have gone anywhere in the country, and the fact that he's staying, you know, within our orbit, as you say, at Hocking College, is a big, big deal for us. It's a loss locally, but it's a win regionally. And I'm glad that that's where he's ended up, and I look forward to continuing our relationship with him and how he can help us with the Workforce Center.
Thank you. Rochelle, please continue.
The TID special meeting is April 25th at 1 p.m. at the Record Center. Retirement open house for Kim DeVitt on April 25th at 4:30 at the Ale House. Southeastern Ohio Center for Independent Living Cornhole for a Cause is April 26th from 5:30 to 6 at the Southeastern Ohio Center for Independent Living. The Ohio Governor's Holocaust Commemoration, April 27th, 2 o'clock at the Ohio State House Atrium. The invitation to OSU Extension's Real Money, Real World program with Ohio Treasurer Robert Sprague, April 28th. That time is to be determined. It is at Rushville Middle School. The Ohio Chamber of Commerce Google program, May 3rd, 9:30, Ohio Chamber of Commerce. The Elder Abuse Awareness Day 2023 Conference, June 28th at 10 a.m. And that is at the Ohio State University Fawcett Center. There's correspondence. We have a memo from County Auditor Dr. Carrie Brown, April 13th. Subjects Homestead Program Update, Software as a Service, Statewide Parcel Map, Board of Revision Cases, and National County Government Information. Central Ohio Transit Authority 2022 Annual Report is also included, and a letter from a resident regarding solar energy. That is it.
All right, thank you, Rochelle. Under, all right, quickly, jail population.
Last week, 257 with 29 being contracted. This week, 267 with 26 being contracted.
Thank you. Any old business from any of my colleagues?
Just real quickly, so last week was kind of walking the walk and not just talking the talk. We had an opportunity to introduce Lancaster Mayor David Scheffler to a group that does long-term multifamily housing, and it was a very, very productive conversation to the point where that group will be moving forward on some land hopefully soon to do that within or just outside the city limits in a property that would be annexed. That was very positive. Friday, Deputy Administrator Jeff Porter, Deputy JFS Director Heather O'Keefe, and I went to Cincinnati to meet with folks from CityLink, which is an organization that brings all the different service providers together who deal with people who are in poverty. The idea is to remove barriers for economic growth, individual economic growth opportunity. It's a workforce program, it's a poverty program, it's a transportation program, all wrapped up in one. It was really cool, seems to be very effective, and I was really appreciative of Jeff and Heather's time, and more to come on that. We met with a gentleman who is trying to put together a coalition on the, we're not calling it the outer belt, but the idea that we can link the Intel project and Rickenbacker Air Force Base. So there's movement there. And finally, I had a great opportunity to meet with David Haig, who's the gentleman who owns almost 1,000 acres in the Pickerington area that he's turned into a conservation district, and just he continues to move that forward. And it's really it's compelling and interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Under old business, Commissioner Levesey, anything?
No, thank you.
Nor do I. Under new business, Commissioner Levesey, anything?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Fix?
Just that I just got a text from the CCAO that the amendments to the state budget have come up that are different than what we anticipated in a negative way. So we'll be continuing to work on that in the coming weeks.
Okay. Nothing under new business for me. I'm going to give our elected officials and department heads, Lisa, anything? Appreciate you being here. Dr. Brown.
Just really quick, that we haven't mentioned in this setting about the population growth that's been documented in Fairfield County. It's 162,898 as of July 1st, 2022. That's a 2.5% increase over the 20 census, and about an 11%, a little bit more than 11% increase over 2010. And there are many counties who have had a discussion about how they are envious of that type of population, knowing that that makes a difference in all the other efforts.
New business from departments, Tony, anything? John?
If I just could go EMA way, I didn't get an opportunity to talk about, we did have a tornado. And that was an unanticipated event with the National Weather Service and wasn't warned as a tornado. But so that's why, for the record, we didn't have tornado sirens for that tornado. It was not a warned tornado. It was very surprised to the Weather Service.
Significant damage or no?
A couple homes, the village of Pleasantville, which thank you to the engineer and the township and the village all for helping out and getting the road opened and getting people safe. But no homes destroyed, but significantly. And then a few outbuildings, barns, things like that.
It was kind of interesting because I saw a multi-vortex out on the lake.
You can draw a line from Clear Creek to leaving the county north Pleasantville, Thurston from that same storm. And again, it was a cold front, which was very unique for them to see that.
Thank you, John. Dan, anything? Corey?
We don't have to go right up to 11 o'clock.
On IAC, I think we do.
So we don't have to go right up to.
We don't have to do that. There was something though. I do have a couple concluding remarks, but before we get to that, any other issue or item that anybody wants to bring to this review session?
I think that any suggestion that we are not focused on the appropriate priorities as a Fairfield County government is completely out of line.
I understand, and For those who were patient with us, I mean, please understand, our primary responsibility is to make funding decisions on county operations. And when a $5 million question comes up and we have people who have traveled from afar, many consultants who are here today to hear and participate in that discussion, we're certainly going to take some time to discuss and debate and understand $5 million proposals. So for those who showed some patience on that, we certainly appreciate it. I'll take a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Got a motion to adjourn and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, same sign. Motion carries. IAC will be here in meeting at 11, and I know some people got to go, so please